Hello.
Whoa.
Hello, lovelies.
Hi.
Oh, I'm loving the color thing happening.
I'm loving the orange.
And the turquoise. And the turquoise.
She said, who has orange on?
Hey.
Welcome, welcome. How you doing, Kenny?
Oh, well, you know, I am excited. So I am like super geeked up right now. So you guys know I have this little thing called the Dream Academy where I mentor a bunch of young ladies in leadership, personal development, and all things college admissions, campus tours, all that good stuff, right? So right before we were getting ready to go live, I got a text message because you know these kids don't call nobody, which I'm cool with because I don't really call people either. But I got a text message from Marley, and Marley has gotten her early acceptance back from NYU, and she's going to her dream school, and I am so excited for her. It is something that she worked extremely hard for, and I just couldn't be happier. So I'm gonna have a good day, y'all.
Look, we know you're going to have a good day. You're a little extra happy for Marley because I was like, welcome to the pink couch. Remember that? That's what we hear.
You said, how you feeling? I said, let me tell you. So there you go. Now you know.
Robin, Inez, Michelle, Christina, embrace your girl. Embrace your friend. Embrace your friend.
Yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't you be excited about that? Come on, that's not.
I think it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, Miss Robin Inez, what are you bringing to the couch today?
Well, I'm not bringing a what. I'm bringing a who. I have Miss Faith, the founder of Bombs by Faith. That's who I'm bringing to the couch. Faith, you want to come join me on the couch? Woo! Round of applause, round of applause. You can't hear all the audience saying, Faith, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Don't be shy. It's just us talking.
We're just talking.
Who are you? Yeah, who are you? What's your name? What grade are you in?
I am Faith, and I'm in the 3rd grade.
Okay, and why are you here today? Why are you here today? What's next to you?
What's next to me is my bath bombs, my card.
I'll hold it up for the people. She has a card, y'all. Can y'all see the card? Bombs by Faith, y'all. She got the marketing popping off. So yeah, she's so you have, why do you have bath bombs? What is that about? Why did you start making bath bombs?
I started making bath bombs because they were a enjoyable experience for me.
Awesome. Awesome. I think there's somebody on there saying hi to you.
Hi.
It's okay to wave to them, say hey. You see your name up there in light space.
Here's the thing, love. We are so excited about what you're doing with your bath bombs and that you are just a little mini entrepreneur. You are going to do great things in your lifetime. Matter of fact, I have purchased some of your bath bombs and I've given them to my cousin because she is the bath taker. I'm a shower girl. But she has raved about these bath bombs. She loves your bath bombs. And now she expects me to keep buying them every time she has a birthday. So I guess you'll have another order coming in pretty soon because her birthday's in April.
There you go. There you go. See, you have some fans out there.
Wow. I see nobody saying hi to us, Faith. They're all talking. I love it. I love it.
Faith has a large family, so they're all out there probably. Hey, look at that. You see some names popping up there that you know?
Hi, Nana.
Okay, so let's see what you have here. Let me see. What do you have here? Here, I'll help you. What kind of bath bombs do we have? Oops, I'm messing up your little display.
This
Mm-hmm.
This was for Halloween pumpkin spice.
I could smell it. I could smell it. Okay, what else do we have? What's this one?
This is a shower bath bomb. You could use these for showers.
What? See, that's for you, Kennedy. You can use these for showers. So how do you use this for showers? How does it work?
So you have to take the wrapper off.
Okay.
And you wet it
Okay.
like bath bombs, and it like sizzles.
Oh, can you eat it? I feel
No. No, you can't.
I got a little taste of something. Okay, so you take it, and then what do? You wet it, and what happens?
You wet it, and it sizzles. They're like when you're taking a bath. Or
a shower. You can do a shower. Really? See, Kennedy, we're gonna get you some of these. Okay. And is there what else do you want to call out on here?
This is called raspberry.
Okay. Let me smell it.
What is it?
How do you come up with the different flavors?
I come up with the different flavors from how it looks and how it smells.
Oh, okay.
So
what's your favorite? Oh, go ahead.
I said, what's your favorite?
My favorite smell is the pumpkin spice.
Yeah, that's a good smell. Y'all can't smell this right now, but this is a party in some wrapper. That's really good.
Well, I think that pumpkin spice, if you just think about like the big craze around pumpkin spice, when Starbucks releases that drink in October, they have people showing up in droves, right? Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a hit for you, Faith.
So let me ask this. What's next for Bombs of Faith? You have bath bombs, you now have shower bombs. What's next for you?
It's a surprise.
Oh, okay. A little intrigue. That's some good marketing right there. So how will someone know how to find out about this surprise? Where can they find you? Where can they buy these bath bombs? How can they keep in touch with you? You have this sign here.
They could go to www.bombsoffaith.com with 2 F's, and you could also follow me on IG bombs_of_faith, and Facebook Bombs of Faith with 2 F's.
Oh,
okay, Miss Faith.
Nailed that. No.
Don't play with Miss Faith. She has it all together, honey. All together. And you give us so much hope for what young people are and what they can do in this world if they are just given the opportunity to live and spread their wings and fly and dream. So we appreciate you for being here, Faith. Thank you.
Can I come work for you, Faith?
I was gonna say, what were you doing when you were 8 years old?
That's when I thought I was gonna be Nadia Comaneci. So I don't know why you're laughing. You asked a question I was gonna be Nadia Comaneci. So that's what I was preparing for. Either her or Debbie Allen. Carry on.
Okay. You know what? I'm not here to squash your dream.
Thank you.
Back then, that's been deferred.
The past.
Oh.
Faith, don't let them teach you shade. Don't let them teach you shade, Faith.
Yeah, I think I was probably I was either playing with my Barbies. I think I still was into Barbies at 8. Or playing grocery store. I used to take a shoebox and put the tape inside out. So when you hit the tape, it sounded like a cash. Anywho. So Faith, I am so glad. Faith is also my my co-interior designer. So I've been helping her grandfather redo his basement. And so she's gone on a couple of shopping and design trips with me. This girl has, she's a road dog for real. So she's a pack and go. Let's go. So I look forward to seeing what is next for Bombs of Faith. I look forward to keeping this pumpkin spice. I look forward to making sure everybody out there go and follow Bombs of Faith on Instagram and Facebook. We'll make sure we post it on our social media as well. Anything else you want to say before we go?
I want to say that thank all of you for following me and showing support.
Oh, yay. Awesome. Thank you.
We love you, Miss Faith.
We love you, Faith.
Yes.
Hey, just a word of caution. Check Robin's shirt before you walk off set, baby girl.
You know what? We can't. All right. Thanks, Faith. Thank you.
Thanks, Faith.
Okay.
Oh, we absolutely love showcasing Miss Faith today. And that is the joy and the hope that we want to share and that we want to start with today. Because the topic that we want to come to you with today, our show today is called Trade. And it's when you think about what is trade and why was this so important for us? Trade is all about trading humanity for profit. This is about human trafficking. And so when you look at faith, you look at this is what happens with the art of the possible when a child can flourish and be a child and grow up into their full destiny, protected and uninterrupted. And that's not the case for everyone. When we talk about why this is important, because we need to really, really, really focus on humanity. And in focusing on humanity, you have to focus on every person who walks the face of the earth with us. And in this topic, and when we're talking about human trafficking, nobody is immune. And I think we're going to learn a lot. We have some experts. We have people who can talk us through the truth today. And more important, after you learn the truth, what are you going to do about it? And so what's the call to action? I have been convicted and compelled to move forward. And what we really have learned is how disproportionately human trafficking affects and impacts women and girls of color in particular. So that's what we're here for today. That's what we want to explore. So Robin Kennedy, give me a few thoughts from you when we're thinking about this whole notion of trade and trafficking. What are the first thoughts that come to your mind when we started talking about this topic?
First thing that pops in my mind is just devastation, right? It's devastating to think that someone is being stripped of their freedom, their rights, and being a part of a transaction. That their humanity is being reduced to such a, this place where they're just a commodity at that point. It is heartbreaking to me. It is devastating to me that this happens anywhere. And I think there's also a little bit of shock and awe for me, because I told you guys this, but I didn't even know that this really existed until about 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm pretty well in tune with politics and current events, and I stay up on things because I'm always in the community doing things. And so I'm really surprised that I just learned about it 4 or 5 years ago. And it makes me think about just the common person. Do they even know? Do they understand that this is happening right in your own backyard? And even greater than that, do they know that it could happen to them? It can happen to their children. It can be someone they know, someone they love. And it's just, full circle back to devastated. That is where I am with that. Ro, what about you, Rob?
Yeah, so it's one of these things where it's just been on my heart. It's been a calling to have this conversation. You know how you decide to get a particular car and then you see that car everywhere. It was the reverse for me. I was hearing and seeing just pockets, small pockets, not mainstream, not anywhere in a loud voice, but I was seeing small pockets of human trafficking and it wasn't that it was new to me. I've heard of this before, obviously, but it wasn't front of mind. It wasn't even the back burner, low simmer. It was not even, it was just nowhere in my top 100 worries. And it quickly kept escalating and escalating. I didn't go looking for it. It just came. And I can't turn on the TV now, still not mainstream, but I can't turn on the TV now and not see or hear something like this. And it's one of these hard pivots, because as I was talking to Faith's mom about bringing her on the show, I'm like, hey, we're talking about this content. And so, we'll have her at the beginning or the end, and then, you can take her away. And her mom was like, no. And, if my kids were of this age, I would be no. And to what you were saying, EJ, is that, why this isn't mainstream is because of who it impacts the most. And the value and worth that is assigned to Black and brown girls just doesn't make mainstream news, right? It doesn't make mainstream conversations. And so to me, it's important to learn and to know, because even today I've had so many girlfriends and some of my guy friends like, oh, I was just talking to so-and-so whose daughter, neighbor, friend. I'm like, wow. I bet every single person has at least someone that they know of who has been impacted by this.
Or at least one degree of separation, right? So even if it's not that person, but it might be a person that they know, I think there's definitely somebody in your span of environment, influence, like all of that has been impacted in some kind of way. And I think it's super important that we talk about the different types of trafficking, because even in the awareness that I had 4 years ago, it was purely around sex trafficking. Right? It wasn't even all of the other types of trafficking that exist. So Gigi, why don't you kick some knowledge to us? Because I know you're up on this.
And it's horrible to have to say that, yes, I am up on this, that we have to be, but we do. And so there are 6 types of trafficking, right? So there's sex trafficking and child sex trafficking, forced labor. So think about that. Debt bondage, like you're held until you can pay off some form of a debt. Forced child labor, which is different and sometimes intermingled with sex trafficking. Then there's involuntary domestic servitude, which you hear a lot with people trying to escape from someplace or get to someplace else and are held captive in that way. And then also there is unlawful recruitment and use of child soldiers. And I've heard a lot of those stories. So just think about that. I do want to ask for the folks who are watching, a question out to you and put it on any of the channels. When was the first time you actually heard about trafficking? What was your first sort of entree into this conversation? Would love to hear those thoughts from you. So, and I think, I'm looking forward to hearing from, we have some extraordinary women who are about to bless us with themselves. So you all forgive me if I go silent, because if the tears start flowing, that's what they do. It's really, really personal. Quite frankly, I sit on a board of Girls Inc. of Alameda County, and learning that Oakland, California is a hub for trafficking, right? Been living here for how many years? It's a hub for trafficking. And every day, those girls are in danger for their life every day. What can we do? How do we not turn a blind eye?
Yeah.
So, I think so. I'm going to do real quick and dirty, true or false. I'm going to take 30 seconds. I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions and answer me true or false. The only way of addressing human trafficking is to get rid of the markets that draw the traffickers.
False.
You are correct.
Or is this a response to the...
I was asking you, this is a call and response. I ask a question. Don't worry, I'm just going to ask one more, Robin. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, here's one. If the victim of human trafficking gives consent to the trafficker, she or he is no longer a victim of trafficking.
That's false.
False.
Beautiful. You have set the tone. So super excited and ready to jump in and ready to jump into the conversation. So Kim, why don't I turn it over to you?
Okay. Thank you for doing that. Always love the Q&A or the true and false stuff. It keeps us on our toes, but more importantly, helps to educate the audience and anybody who I hope will watch this again on the replay, because it's such an important topic. But just like, we're talking about this as if it's removed and we don't know people who are impacted. We actually do have people who are impacted that are going to share their journeys and their stories with us today. And surviving a traumatic event can be daunting and overwhelming, right? Trust me, I know. I've been through some. It is the worst thing, but you also realize that it makes you a warrior. It makes you an overcomer with a powerful story to share. So like our first guest, Dr. Mary Kay Holmes, who is going to join us in a second. Now, she has an amazing story that I cannot wait for you guys to hear. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about who she is. Dr. Mary Kay is a pastor, a first lady, the CEO, and an international best-selling author. She is also known as the Comeback Queen. So we're going to have two queens on the show today, y'all, and I'm okay with that. She is a survivor of domestic abuse, molestation, rape, human trafficking, prostitution, incarceration, and multiple suicide attempts. Dr. Holmes speaks from her heart concerning real life issues that plague women all over the globe. And she believes that God has raised her up to be an influential triple threat for the kingdom in corporate, community, and in the church. She is currently working on her second memoir, Trapped in Plain Sight, The Unfamiliar Face of Human Trafficking. Here today on the pink couch, help me bring her up, y'all, Dr. Mary Kay Holmes.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
We are so glad that you are here. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. I tried to wear my pink in honor of the pink couch.
Oh, we saw all that fabulous pop out. As soon as you came up, I was like, ooh, I love this woman already. I love her. I love her.
Oh, yeah. We do pink here, and not just on Wednesdays. Like, what is that new hashtag on Instagram? It's like, we wear pink on Wednesdays. We do pink every day. So there you go. Hey, Mary Kay, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
How do you have time in the day to still be an advocate for something when you have all of these things going on in your life?
Listen, when God gives you an assignment and a grace for things, it just seems to all work out. I don't do it all. People think, okay, what don't you do? I really don't do it all, I promise. But the things that I know that I have just a grace to do, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if there's like 3 or 4 of me that get stuff done. And somehow, I don't know. But I'm just so grateful because I am a professional multitasker. So I get it done. So yeah, it's a lot, but I really enjoy what I do.
That is so important. And, I am amazed at how people can go through a thing like human trafficking, come out on the other side. To me, it's nothing but God that you can come out on the other side, tell that story, and find beauty in those ashes and share them with other people. So tell us about, how does this happen? How does it happen?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, I can tell you that. Traffickers, they know who to victimize. They know how to spot their victims. They know how to seek out those that are vulnerable, those that have already been traumatized and are susceptible to manipulation and control. And so my story starts when I was just 4 years younger than Faith. She's 8 years old. I was 4 years old when I was molested by an older relative. And this lasted throughout my childhood years. And so by the time I was 12 years old, 4 years older than Faith, if I got my math right, look, I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician. By the time I was 12, I lost my virginity. So I was having sex at 12 years old and 14 years old pregnant. And so the next year, 15 years old, I met a man who was 36. And he watched me. He would come into my job where I was working. He would buy these smoothies $2 and some change and pull out a wad of cash to pay for the smoothie, have the jewelry on, flashing the jewelry, colorful clothes, and he would flirt with me. And so as a young girl, I was flattered. And so he would keep coming in, flirting with me day after day. And what I didn't know was he had been watching me for some time. And so one day he just says, how would you like to make more money in one day than you make an entire week working on this job? And so he had piqued my interest. He had dangled that carrot in front of me. And growing up in poverty, you know, I wanted to get out of that lifestyle. I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to have to graduate from high school and depend on Section 8 or live in the projects. I didn't want to have a roach infested apartment. You know, I didn't want to have children with different baby daddies. And, you know, my mindset then was I didn't want to be a statistic. I wanted to have somebody that was going to pretty much be my escape from the hood. So the big time drug dealers were it, right? And that's a lot of young girls, a lot of young teenagers in the inner city. That was our thing, so to speak. But when you're young, you just don't know what you don't know. And so he took advantage of my youth. I didn't know how old he was at the time. But what he did was he wined and dined me, took me out to restaurants. I had never been out to eat like that in my life. I had never, you know, been exposed to his level of like his lifestyle. And he would send me to the city. When I say the city, I mean New York City. I lived in Connecticut at the time. He would send me to New York City to buy clothes for school. He would pick me up from school in his car, drop me off and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden, I went from having to shop at the Goodwill to buy the brand name clothes to now having the latest Tommy Hilfiger and Nautica. You know, back then we didn't have cell phones yet, so you know, I had my pager and you know, had all the things that all of us young girls wanted. A ring on every finger. I could choose which jewelry I wanted on any given day. So all of a sudden, my lifestyle just changed suddenly. And then he became controlling very quickly. He became very jealous, very manipulative. And then it started to get abusive. And then before I knew it, I'm a teenager transporting drugs for him across state lines, transporting pure cocaine from the Bronx to New Haven, Connecticut. He taught me how to cook it up, weigh it out, bag it up, and I was putting it on the streets in New Haven for him. And the unspoken rule was that I was supposed to take the rap if we ever got caught. And so he slowly groomed me into this lifestyle. And before I knew it, I was pregnant by him and trapped in this small 1-bedroom apartment, pregnant. And on some days with no food in the house. I remember having to eat a can of tuna fish out of the can one night. And I wasn't allowed to leave the apartment. I was about, I would say about an hour and 20 minutes from my family, but no one knew where I was. And I didn't have a driver's license at the time. I wasn't allowed to use the phone. I wasn't allowed to leave the apartment complex because it was like a condo style apartment building where if you leave out, the door will lock behind you. So I wasn't even allowed to go out for fresh air. I wasn't even allowed to go out into the hallway. And he had that much fear. He had instilled that much fear and intimidation in me to where the phone was right there. And I was afraid to use it because I knew he would do whatever, you know, I was afraid of what he would do if he found out. So he had his phone rigged. He had the calls forwarded to his pager at the time. I'm dating myself. I'm not that old, I promise. But you know, this was like dial-up internet connection years. This is old AOL, 500 free minutes, and you know, most of y'all probably listening don't know anything about that.
Don't feel bad, Mary Kay. 07734. Do you remember 07734?
Listen, because if this was more recent times, like, okay, why didn't you just email? Look, this was before email. Okay, there was no computer in the house. There was no internet, anything like that, but there was that phone. And for years, I beat myself up and I blamed myself for years, and I know better now, but I blamed myself for years that phone was right there and I could have gotten out, but that's what traffickers do. And I'm so glad you said what you said. I forget which one of you ladies said it, but you said that when it comes to youth, and when it comes to underage children and those that are trafficked, it doesn't matter if they give consent. It's still trafficking. You know, so even though it was something that I thought I was agreeing to and thought that I was participating in, I was just a kid. I was 15, he was 36. And it was just, to me, during those times, it was one of the worst times in my life because I felt like I had no control. I had no say-so in my life. and everything that he said went. And it was traumatic. It made me feel like I couldn't look people in the eye for years. Even after it was over, I struggled for years looking people in the eye, and I had social anxiety, afraid to be around people. And even to this day, I hate to say it, but like if a man gets too close to me too quickly, I flinch or I'll clench my teeth. And it's just a reaction, a learned reaction that I developed over the years to try to cope or ground myself or to try to make myself feel safe. So it was a traumatic experience, to say the least, but that's where it started.
So how do you get out of that?
Well, listen, how I got out of it is a whole story in and of itself, but I'll make it very, very short. The way I got out of it, it was traumatic. It was another traumatic experience wrapped up in the trauma. I was pregnant with our second child, and I wound up going into premature labor because of all the stress. I don't even know how far I want to go into it because I don't want to open up a can of worms. He had moved another young lady into the apartment that was in my name at this point. He had moved another young lady in who had been in high school, but he made her drop out and come live with us. And so while she's getting pregnant, popping out babies, I'm trying to rush to get pregnant to compete because my mind is so far gone that I'm trying to impress or try to get him to choose me, so to speak. And so I got pregnant, but I wound up going into premature labor because of all the stress. At this point, I'm sleeping on my couch and they're sleeping in our bedroom. And so I felt like Miss Seeley and Suge. I felt like the color purple, like, Miss Seeley and Suge. She didn't let this woman in her house. But anyway, we were both young girls. And so to put it into perspective, I'm going through all of this stress. I go into premature labor. My son is in the NICU. And when he finally comes home, she has all of her kids there running around the house, and we get into this fight. Now, this is the first day my child is home. I find out she's pregnant again, and we get into this fight. Make a long story short, the fight got so nasty, it got so ugly that she ran to the neighbor's house, called the police. The police came, and she had to leave. But that was the catalyst for me getting out, because I knew at that point, I said, something's got to give. I can't keep living like this. And so I slowly began to pack up my stuff because I knew he would destroy all of my belongings if he knew I was trying to leave. So I slowly started to make an exit plan. So I packed up some of my things and would slowly get it out the door, and rented a car and had it parked down the street. But the day I was supposed to leave, he came back home early and beat me in front of our sons. My youngest son doesn't remember it, but my oldest son does. Beat me in front of my sons. I tried to call the police. Then he broke the phone. I ran upstairs to the neighbor's apartment. They wouldn't call the police for me. But he saw how determined I was to leave, that he allowed me to leave because he was afraid of getting caught by the cops. And so it was a huge explosion, but that's how I got out.
So
I know.
One, thank you. Just thank you for being transparent. This is a new conversation for a lot of us. It's a new conversation, and it's a difficult conversation. So how do your baby saw that, right? And thinking about others and thinking about those of us who have children, loved ones, what have you, who we want to protect. What do you do? How are you protecting your babies? How are you protecting those around you now with the work you're doing?
Well, with my oldest son, it's so interesting that you asked that, because we recently had a conversation about it. And, he just, I had never heard him speak openly about what happened. But he just out of the blue, like, I remember, my dad beating you with belts. Like, I remember, the day that, you left and when we had to get out of there, like he remembers vividly those moments. And it broke my heart, because I always hoped that he was too young, that maybe it got suppressed or buried somewhere, or maybe, it was just so long ago that maybe it didn't affect him, but it did. And I remember when I left, I really had to protect my sons in such a way to where, you know, I remember having to put my oldest son in different programs and making sure that he got different means of therapy. It wasn't like the traditional sense of, you know, it wasn't the traditional like therapist kind of environment, but more like group therapy for families. And I did what I could, but I remember that back then I was still so young. And my childhood had been stolen from me. So even though I was in my early 20s, I was still very underdeveloped mentally. I still had a lot of growing to do. And I had become really traumatized, to say the least, or just to put it plainly, but I was very broken. And so fast forward years later, he took both of my children from me. And so people that know me know this part of my story, but I don't talk about it often. It doesn't usually come up, but he took both of my children from me, and took the other young lady's children as well, and had all of them in, you know, one apartment, and found another young girl, another teenager, started having babies with her. And anyway, to make a long story short, there was only up to a certain point I was able to do but so much until he took them. And then when he took them, he hired 2 attorneys. I didn't have representation. This was one of the reasons why I even went into law, because I saw how clients or saw how defendants were treated in the courtroom when they didn't have representation versus those who did. And I remember just feeling helpless. I remember feeling as if I had no voice. And I remember feeling like everything that they did, they were heard. It was like someone constantly talking over you, someone constantly stepping and cutting you in the line, so to speak. And in that courtroom, I felt so defeated, and I was no match for his lawyers and with my little self. And at the time, and I hope this has changed recently, but there were no pro bono services for family law. So this wasn't something that was available to me. And so anyway, he wound up raising them. But I thank God that, you know, when the time came, both of my sons reached out to me on their own and found their way back to their mom.
Jesus.
Dr. Mary Kay. No, go ahead. I stand in awe.
So I understand that, you know, I mean, this is a lot about isolation, right? In terms of keeping you from, and I as you were telling your story, I feel like I'm sitting in a window watching it, and I'm just like, I want to do something. And I imagine, you know, what could someone like me, who might have been your upstairs neighbor, might have been someone who passed you on, how could I have known, and what might I have been able to do to help you?
The main thing I think that really would have helped back then, because there were a lot of people that knew who I was dating, like my friends from high school. My mother didn't know, even though we're from the South and my mother was very strict, but I was the baby too. So I got a lot more leniency when it came to her at that point, because she was working long hours, but she stuck to her rule. Look, if somebody's coming to my house picking you up, I need to know who they are. So I need to meet this person. So what the man did, this 36-year-old man at the time, what he did was he paid a teenager to drive his truck to my mom's house and drop me off. And that way, when she came outside, the teenager that she met, she thought that was him, of course. And so every time she saw the truck thereafter, she assumed it was the same young man who she had met, who stood in her living room and had a full conversation with her as if he was the person who was picking me up every single day from school. And so she tried. And so some things it's going to be very difficult when someone is under the control of a trafficker, because there's all of this manipulation that goes on in this deceit. But the questions that you can ask, and just the education that can be available to someone. When I was a teenager, I remember having the DARE programs. I remember having sex education, but there was no human trafficking piece. Right. If I had been aware of some of the signs to watch out for myself, I might not have walked into it as blindly as I did at first, because it didn't happen. Like he became gradually abusive and gradually controlling and gradually manipulative. And then he introduced the drugs and all of that stuff gradually. But if I had been aware of some of these things early on by teachers or educators and, different people that came into the school to teach us about everything but human trafficking, that might have helped. And then as far as someone like later on, when I was in the apartment with him as a neighbor, when he kept me inside of that small 1-bedroom apartment for that length of time, it was like the neighbors had no clue, because the only time they saw me was when, he brought me there. And then one day when I was allowed to leave. So there was really not much they could do. I remember watching from the window, watching people come and go, watching people, standing outside, smoking cigarette, doing different things, and just watching and wondering, like, all I have to do is just yell down to somebody. But I was afraid. So there really wasn't much that the neighbors could do. And then later on, when we moved and, I'm pregnant with this second child, and we're in this 2-family house where we had neighbors upstairs. Unfortunately, that neighbor was beating on his wife. And that was one of the main reasons, or probably the only reason, why they didn't call the police when I ran upstairs and asked them to call. So as a neighbor, they knew what was going on. But as an informed neighbor, as someone who does care, these are the things you can watch out for, hearing the type of language that's used, how a person is treated, and kind of being clued into, okay, something's off, something's not right. And if something's not sitting right, start to get to know the person, ask questions, and build a relationship with that female to get her to open up in some way. It was such a difficult time with my surroundings, because he had isolated me so much and destroyed so many of my relationships. And that's another clear sign. If all of a sudden this person that is dating someone or seeing somebody, and all of a sudden all of their relationships are deteriorating, they're turning their back on friends and family that have been in their corner for years, but all of a sudden they don't want to have anything to do with those people that have been around them for years, and everything is centered around this person that they're now with, that's a clear sign that they're with someone who's abusing them, who may be trafficking them, who's isolating them from every support system that they have, so that they can become their sole source of support.
So I can't believe we're at the end. I know. I can't believe we're at the end of our time. And I would love, because this conversation isn't over, and I would love to invite you back in the future, because I think there is more and deeper levels that we want to go in this. Before we leave you, though, people have heard this conversation, many for the first time at this, at this intimate level. What's something you hope people will do as a result of this conversation?
I hope that people will have more conversations about this. I hope that people will educate themselves, or find the education that they need, and seek out those resources that provide, more information about human trafficking, and have these conversations with your children. Have these conversations with young girls, because even if you might feel as if they're too young for the conversation, remember my story. I was having sex at 12. When I look at my stepsons and they're like around that age, I'm like, I can't imagine, they're babies. But guess what? They're an entirely different person in that school or around their friends. They have a whole nother personality. And not to mention the fact that even at like 8 years old, 9, 10 years old, the conversations that I remember having amongst my peers, it blows my mind that we thought that we were as mature as we were. But guess what? We were ready to at least be educated in the right way. This was before internet. So now they have the world at their fingertips. Be the one to educate them before the world educates them, or someone is introduced to them, or someone enters into their life and takes advantage of their vulnerability. Make them aware.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. And more important, we appreciate the glory that is on you right now, and how you are using your gifts to bless so many other people, including all three of us right now. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And we will be talking. We will be talking.
Yeah, don't go
Absolutely.
far.
Oh, you're stuck with us now, your family. So
I know. I might need a lawyer.
Thanks, Mary Kay.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Take care. Whew.
Wow.
Take a breath. Take a breath.
That's only one. We still have another. Okay.
So I want to bring up, and I do, seriously, I'm telling people, take a breath. Literally take a breath. If you need to stand up, walk around a little bit, that's okay. But keep listening, because these stories and these conversations are going to change lives. And I would love to bring up to the stage at this moment, Miss Regina Evans. It is so wonderful to see you.
Hi, guys.
Oh, there you are. Now I can hear you too. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me tell you all a little bit about Miss Regina, who I also just stand in awe of. One, I met Miss Regina and she educated me from the moment we first started talking. She is, and I quote, a modern day abolitionist.
Amen.
And has been in the fight against child sex trafficking. She's a social justice playwright, a costumer, an actor, a poet. She is the founder of Regina's Door, which is an Oakland-based vintage store which operates as a creative healing space for young survivors of sex trafficking. I mean, it goes on, and her story, and what she is pouring into now is why I think we are all going to benefit from this conversation. And what I learned, Miss Regina, with the healing magical hands, who is able to create and touch and build and give life through her hands. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I've been costuming all day. My fingernails are red from paint, spray paint. I got glue stuck like everywhere, hot glue, like, so.
I love it.
Oh, let me stop.
I love it.
I was like, but I have red fingernails and no fingernail polish.
It is hard to hear. I don't know if we can get the producer to do something, or maybe Regina, if we can get you turned up a little bit.
How do I do that?
That concludes the education that I can provide.
Okay.
Yeah, your mic volume is just a little bit low. So whatever microphone you're using, if you turn that up a bit, we'll be able to hear you.
Okay, I turned it up as much as it'll go up.
We'll just try to use your outside voice.
Yes.
Okay, I can do that. I'm going to use my stage voice. Is that better?
Yes.
No.
Better.
Stage voice.
Well, we're going to plow ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to hear your story. So, Regina, to walk us through. I mean, how did it come to be that you're here today? So how did you become the modern day abolitionist that you are?
So it is not anything that I thought that I was going to be doing. I had lived in London for a few years, and I moved to Australia. I was there for like 15 years, had a beautiful little shop, beautiful little vintage shop there, which I wanted it to just be for like the everyday woman, because I have a heart for people. It turned into this big celebrity zone, which afforded me the opportunity to actually help people, like help put kids through school, like just all kinds of stuff. It was amazing. And I started to feel a tug in my spirit, and I started having these very vivid dreams, like that my store was closing down, and just that I needed to heal from my trauma that had happened. And by that time, I was like in my late 30s, early 40s. I'll be 60 this year. So I've been home since 2006. And I had a dream where literally my store was empty, and it was so real. And it was in the middle of the day. I'd taken a nap, woke up, and I was like, oh my God, it was just a dream. Went back to sleep, had the same exact dream. And in prayer, I picked up, go home and I will restore you. And not only that, give away everything. Right? And so that's what I did. So I came home to Oakland with literally nothing, to a very pissed off mother. My family thought I was crazy. And the only thing I could say was like, I think I'm on a spiritual journey. I don't know. I have no idea. Now, prior to all this, I had worked on Capitol Hill. I'm a cliff jumper. So I had done some really amazing things, but I had done some amazing things without allowing myself to be healed. I just went on. And so God was like, nope, you're going to be healed. So I took that time to heal and came home, was still healing. I went homeless, couch surfing, just the whole 9 yards. But the whole time, it's like I'm doing a journey like this with my eyes closed. Nope, not here. Nope, yep, here. Oh, what is that? Trafficking. Oh, that was me. Oh, what? Oh my gosh. And just kind of spirit kind of led me into it. And I got not a job, but I was doing some volunteer work. Somebody said, hey, you're a writer. Can you, this nonprofit needs a teacher. And as it turned out, it was Dreamcatchers. And Dreamcatchers is one of the few places in Alameda County that actually has safe space in terms of beds for survivors of trafficking, child sex trafficking. So that's where I was doing my class. I met my friend Soraya Masariegos. I caught her fire and I just never looked back. And so I just spent a lot of years trying to figure out where I was supposed to be. I knew I was going to reopen my store and use that as a platform. And so after a huge, huge struggle, that's what happened. And, people say where God guides, God provides. And I'm like, well, God might not put it in your hand. God will put some strength in you and some wisdom in you. Because I had like literally nothing. And I still was able to open the store. People were like, are you sure you got a space? You just working a little job and doing theater. I'm like, I actually have a space. I opened my space in 2014. And the first thing I did was something that I'm not good at, which is actually running a store. I am not a good entrepreneur at all. I hate it. It sucks. I just like beautiful things and creativity. And so then I changed that into an artist zone. And that's when Regina's door just took off. And, I never sought to make money through that space. I just sought it to be a place where people can come and be healed. I've housed people there. I've housed their animals. It's crazy. People would say your store's closed all the time, but there would be somebody in the store.
So when you have, so when you talk about a place of healing, and particularly when we're talking like human trafficking, do you have, what's the experience that someone who's coming in and needing to heal, what is it that they experience?
I mean, it's different for everybody. We all have different fingerprints, and that's one of the things of why this journey is so hard. Like people want to have an umbrella, like a lot of nonprofits have an umbrella way of doing things because they have to. I don't have to. I'm like an auntie in the community. So I'm very one-on-one. And so everybody's journey is different. So that means how people heal is also going to be different. And that's why I use the arts, because the arts span so many different things. And so people can come in and, for example, I've had young survivors create, I'm really big on you creating your own thing, because when you're trafficked, everything is pulled from you. And so you have to remember And so that means I'm just going to hold up what I can to support you. And then you're going to figure it out. You can ask me questions, but you're going to figure it out. And so I've had people do concerts, create their own concerts. I've had how many organizations actually birthed out of that store, businesses birthed out of that store. And I just sit as a support for that. And then I opened up a second space where I teach young survivors how to be theater costumes. That's called Conjuring Men. And the reason why I do that is because if you think about stitching, it's a very particular thing. It's also away from the glare. I'm very careful that particularly young survivors should have their healing away from the glare of eyes, especially when they're young. Right. That it should not be out for everybody to see, because what happens is that they get re-injured and they're not able to hold it. So it's fine while they're talking, but when you get home and you're by yourself, all the things that you have just talked about, you now have to reckon with again, and knowing that all eyes were on you. So for young survivors, I do not suggest that, I never thought that was a good thing. So I was like, oh, let me see. Oh, production team, costumer, away from the light. And so that's why I do it that way.
So Regina, when we talked a lot about the why, right? Why it happens, who it happens to. And we talked a lot about, so can you tell us a little bit from your words and your perspective, why women and girls of color, in particular, Black and brown girls, are major targets of trafficking?
Well, one of the things you have to look at is like going back, like we say modern day slavery. And I say this to people, it really isn't modern day slavery. This is like a continuation, because the Black female womb has been commodified since we reached these shores. And so you think of the commodification of the Black female womb from our ancestors, ancestral enslaved mamas, right? And you think about like generational trauma, because there's generational joy too, but generational trauma. We have never had a communal or a countrywide like discussion, like in healing our generational trauma from our wombs being commodified, right? And all that wrought, that has never been a discussion. And so all of those things, all of the laws that were around our wombs, so many laws, if you go do research, there's so many laws around, it's almost psychotic.
Well, still today.
Just around our wombs. Yeah. And so then there's never a discussion. And also amongst ourselves, there has not been, a large enough discussion, because people healing is super difficult. Mm-hmm. And so all of those things, a Hottentot woman, it's all like brought into today. So we have young girls who are over sexualized. When you think about our young girls, they can't even be children, and so like the young girl, I guess she told the cop, he said, "Stop it, you're acting like a child." And she said, "I am a child." Wow. So it's all of those things. So there's that, like us not delving into that. And then also we're so disjointed. We don't see somebody else's child as our child. I know when I was growing up, Mrs. Harris across the street, she could spank me. She definitely would tell my mother if something happened. So there's a disjointing in the community now, right? And so there's that. My friend Nola. So here's something very telling. She's asked me one time. She said, "What do you think the line is that traffickers use the most?" And she said, "They tell them you are beautiful." That's the line that traps them the most. But think about it. What does that say about us?
Yeah.
What it says about us is that we are not doing our job.
Yeah.
Because children cannot distinguish between a false love and a real love unless you are there with them for a marathon, mentoring them, holding their hand through a community. And so what happens then is all of these red flags that you see, we don't see them anymore. We don't see the malnourished child. What happened? How did that child lose 15 pounds in a month? What happened to the clothes? Why is she looking directly into my eyes anymore? Why has she stopped speaking? Why has she lost her voice? We don't know that because we are not involved in their lives. And as hard as it is, some of this, these are our children. You know, these are our babies. These are our children.
Right.
And so what happens with that is that we have to begin to say that these are our children. I ask a question before my play. I ask two questions. The first one is this: what would you do if you knew a child was being trafficked? People come back with, call the police, I might, do some little small thing, right? And then I ask this question: what would you do if your child was being trafficked? Trust me, the answers are totally different. People go in. And so what I say to them is, that feeling that you have, that you've just answered with, that visceral feeling, not that I want you to go out and do anything violent, but that visceral feeling, because rage is a justice emotion when handled correctly. And so that
I need to write that down.
I want you to have that for other children, because they are also, that child is also your child.
I want to build on something you said, because you talked about the trafficker, and we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the trafficker. And when we talk, what's the driving force? Why is this something that's not going to just, we get on the mantle and say end human trafficking, and it's not going to? What's the driver? Why? What's the motivation for the trafficker?
I mean, the motivation is money. The motivation is glory. They think it's glamorous. It's a lot of it is money. It's and also, it's intersected with misogyny. All of those things. It's just like a big pot that you put it in. And because if you think, like here in Oakland, a lot of the traffickers, they're literally young men. They are 18. They are babies themselves. They're 18, 19. And so one of the things, like, I have spent so many years trying to build a team of Black men who are from the streets, but are running their own stuff now, corporations or whatever, to mentor them, because they need something else to sell. If they are very profitable at what they do, so switch what's in their hand, but they need someone, again, that mentorship thing is super powerful. They need mentors. They need men to mentor them. They need men who are skilled, men who will love them, men who will teach them how to be a man and what all of that means. But teach them love.
That switch what's in their hand.
Yeah, it needs to switch what's in their hand. And so it's very difficult to tell a kid who's 18, who's making 5 figures in a day or a couple days, oh, I got this little job over here where you're making $20 an hour, maybe. It's difficult. So you have to offer them a pathway, a different pathway, and also love. You also have to teach them what love is as well. Because I run into them on the streets. I talk to them. Like when I do my outreach, I'm like, hey, what's up? Same thing that I do with the young girls. Because they also are our children.
Right. Whew. As we said earlier, we definitely need a part 2 because there's so many different layers of this and so much that's left to be uncovered. I guess and I've monopolized the conversation, so Ken or Rob, if there's something you want to jump in with. I think the last, thing that I wanted to ask you is, so what's the one thing, we are all about do something. Don't just say something. We had a great conversation. We learned a lot of information.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. But what's the do? What would you leave in this conversation? What are a couple things that you would say walking out of here, this is what you can and should do?
The first thing that I would say is get a healing, access your own healing in a very deep way, because if you want to work with kids that have been trafficked, because when you don't access those wounds, like I had covered mine up, had I gone in and to help them whilst my gaping wound was open, it's like hitting a gaping wound against a gaping wound. And so that's pain on both sides. You will re-injure them. There's nothing wrong with having a scar, because that scar can then recognize the gaping wound from the child. So that's the first thing. The second thing is mentor children. And the third thing is to get some training. Nola, people can go to NolaBrantleySpeaks.org. She is actually doing free training. She's one of the best trainers in America. She's a co-founder of Missy. Missy was one of our the first anti-trafficking organization here in Oakland. And now she's running Nola Brantley Speaks. Also, the Shade Project also does trainings. So those would be the things that I would say. And the training piece is necessary.
Perfect.
It is necessary.
Thank you. And you shared with us some links to trainings and opportunities. So we will share.
Yes.
And make sure that gets out so that training will happen. And thank you for that. I think, as we think about, and I can't believe that our time, is coming to a close. It goes fast. It's a lot. And so we have to do. And so I would charge those who are listening. I would charge those who I'm looking at right now. What are you going to do? Don't turn a blind eye. Do train yourself and heal yourself. Don't judge, and do create opportunity. If you have the ability to create opportunity, because I think that's what's going to take. That's what's going to continue to take us all far. So don't leave us just yet, Miss Regina, but I just want to thank you so much for your story, for your sharing, for your heart, and what you continue to do to create a healing space for those who really need it.
Yes, thank you so much. I am definitely going to incorporate some awareness and some training for the girls that are in my Dream Academy. This is a topic that we don't even discuss, and that has to change. So it's going to happen.
Nola Brantley has a training where you can go in. It's called something on the streets, where it's a facilitator's training. And if you take that training, you can facilitate trainings for kids as young as third grade.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Ooh. So Robin, I know it's a moment. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. I get the last word. I'm gonna do two stealings. One is one of the posts that we put on social media today, which is you may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you don't know. And it's one of these things where ignorant, okay, that's understandable. Irreverence, that's unforgivable. And so the other thing that I'm going to steal is what Regina said. Rage is a justice emotion when handled properly. I've said it once, I'll say it a gazillion times. When you get passionate, prepared, and pissed off people, look out. There is nothing we cannot accomplish. We spent this past hour, I've been excited and motivated about the future with the faith, excited and motivated actually by the future with all of our guests tonight, and also incredibly passionately pissed off in terms of what can I do, because this is just not okay, and ensuring that we bring this conversation into mainstream. So that's my final word. The only thing I'll say is that we have our next show. It's like one of those hard pivots. March 25th. Actually, that's going to be a 2-night show. I think we're going to do the 25th and 26th. Stay tuned. Where we're going to talk about suicide. We wanted this year, as we started season 2 of the Pink Couch, to get uncomfier and talk about topics that just aren't mainstream, that are killing, literally, our young girls, our young women, young men, in Black and Brown and other underserved communities. It's hard to say you look forward to it, but I'm looking forward to shining a light on that conversation. I'll say this last thing, which is, when we started the Pink Couch, one of the things that our bar was that we want to, at least for each show, make sure that we are making an impact, making a difference, change someone's mindset and perspective. And I can say across all the shows that we've done, we've managed to do just that. Whether we talked about racism and had some of my white brothers and sisters say, I learned something, here's what I'm doing different. Whether we talked about getting a flu shot, yes, and a corona vaccine shot, and so on and so forth. And so I say that to say, if this show can save one person's life, whether somebody out there knows something that it doesn't look right, please let us know. But more importantly, say something. I'd rather you be wrong than to sit idly by. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to close out. I love you, ladies. I love you profoundly. I love you all for joining us in this conversation this evening. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Regina to close us out with one of her original pieces.
I am somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. And it's past time for you to lay your life upon the ark of justice, for your notes of mercy to flow forth from your throat on my behalf. I am somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. And I want you to speak to the dead places where care and compassion are supposed to reside, and breathe life into their bones and raise up a mighty army of love for me. I'm somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. Can you not see that I'm drowning in the brutalizing place of fear? Do your ears not perceive the tears that drip from my heart, yearning to be released from the clutches of hell that have become my prison? Can you not smell the loss of hope that pervades my world from being shoved into a corner of specialized terror? Let me tell you something. You listen. I am somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. And I want you to look me in my eyes and speak to me that I'm not worthy to have the warmth of your being wrap itself across my lonely soul. Tell me that I'm not lovely enough for you to risk your life for me. I'm somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. And it's cold out here, standing in fear, trembling in unbelief, having to feel and to smell filth. Don't I have a right to live, to life? I'm somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. Do you not think about what my days look like, what the hours or the seconds or the minutes bring? that I don't truly know what a blue sky looks like because the lenses of my eyes have been painted over with the sweat of a multitude who breathe death into my spirit, that I can't remember how the beautiful touch of love should resonate through my being or how it should kiss my brow. Because my soul has been cracked into tiny shards of brittle brokenness. And every day, I am torn by an endless stream of hate, and it takes me over. So listen, won't you hear my cry today? And won't you hug the rivers that leak from my eyes and taste my tears? Will you? Will you? I'm somebody's baby. I'm somebody's child. And I'm yours to love. Yours. Thank you. Amen.